Yo, MrJamble, PoE1. This is my Heist Chieftain build. This build is quite literally immortal. It runs with over 500% movement speed from point A to point B, and it's just a beast of a build. It does no damage, but at least we got a righteous fire ring, right? It got inspired by Pox. Like, I was watching Pox righteous fire build, and I was like, let me try to make a Heist build out of this. So nobody actually really made this, so that's like kind of interesting. Let's get to a showcase first of what this build is actually capable of. And then someone asked me just how tanky can this build practically be. This is a tier 17 map. We can just like stand in all the monsters. It does literally 0 damage to us. It doesn't matter in which pack of monsters you stand. It literally does nothing. Like, we are so tanky with this build, it literally doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter in which tier 70 map you are. You can literally just stand in every pack of monsters. You can stand into the boss, you can stand to everything, you just don't take any damage. That's just how tanky this fucking build is. It does nothing. You guys know the Minotaur, right? So, let's say I'm standing in the middle of them. I'm just like, it does nothing. Like, we can stand into like those type of bosses too. Like, those guardian bosses do nothing to us. We can literally just kill him by AFKing. And this is practically how it goes with like everything. Like, we could just stand in the middle of it, we just don't take any fucking damage. So let me just quickly showcase you how quick this build goes. We're going to the end and then we're going back here. We're not really picking something at the end. I just want to like showcase the speed of this build. So right here we go around, 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 and then we just move, 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 and we're already at the end. And then we just run back like this.
Back to work.
This is about the speed in which this build goes. Sometimes you get stuck at a door, but eventually you get to a point where you're not getting stuck anymore. So you can basically practice with like one of those maps that you already completed and just run through it and then test how you have to stand while running through a door and how you can like locate your character to not get stuck on a door. So, and also what's interesting is once you like run through a door, there's also sometimes that you have to click a door. So if you remember like the pathways, you already know here I have to press X, here I have to press X, here I have to press X. And then you practically just have it like locked down in your mind eventually. And you just automatically press X on every single door that you see and you barely get stuck. So it's like fun. We have phasing, so we just run through everything. And let's go over the traps now. Okay, so now I'm gonna showcase that I'm just like grabbing something here and I'm just gonna run through traps. So we, for instance, here's a replica perfect form. Like all the items here are ass, but don't even look at it. So how it looks is you throw your traps, you throw your like spire, and the monsters get then like sucked into this, and they also get attracted by the decoy totem. There you can just run past them, and you don't have to care about them. There's also traps, and if you see my health bar, I'm just like walking through traps that does no damage. Something you have to keep an eye on are those like robotic maps. When you have like those clockwork monsters and shit, they have lasers that can deal true damage. And then you're like, what is true damage? They can initiate things like undead effects. And those undead effects are pretty damn scary. So that's why we always have a decoy totem on those maps. So whenever you're opening a door, just throw a decoy totem away from you. And they all get like targeted by this decoy totem. So they will never ever hit you. Another measure that we have is we have a vortex. So we practically throw a vortex and it will suck in the monsters and then a decoy totem so they're truly stuck at that direction. And then you never ever get hit by those true damage and explosions from them. Okay, on this map I can show lasers. So just like let's pick a random item at the end and just run all the way through the lasers. So right here we're gonna throw again our totem. We just run through. And then on the left here, if I go like one more door, like I destroy this, get through here. Now the lasers come. So those lasers kill most people, but we can just walk through it. This is 0 damage. And that's how it goes with like all the lasers. We could just run through it, no damage, we're just chilling. So, on our weapon we're using Enlighten with Clarity and Vitality. Vitality gives us life regeneration, Clarity gives us mana regeneration, and Enlighten support makes it so it reservates less mana. On our helmet we're running Temper Shield with Enlightened, Haste, and Grace. Let's get over each one of them. We're running Temper Shield because Temper Shield gives us chance to block spell damage. Based on our chance to block attack damage. So we're running 75% normal block and we have 54% chance to block spell damage. If I remove this, so let me just edit here quickly. If I remove this, my spell block will just not exist anymore. I literally have 0 spell block without Temper Shield. And then I turn on Temper Shield and now I get 50%. So that is practically why we're using Temper Shield. We run Haste because it gives us movement speed. Movement speed is really important because Heist you want to be as quickly as you possibly can. We're running Grace to upper Evasion. Evasion increases our movement speed because our body is clear of the forest. You want to have at least 45,000 Evasion. If you have 45,000 Evasion, after that it doesn't really matter as much anymore, but Grace is like still nice to have. The reason why we're using Enlighten support is to lessen the burden of the reservation from the Haste, Grace, and Temper Shield. Each one of those has a reservation percentage on the top of their like skill, like you can read it on the level, and having Enlighten will practically reduce that amount. And let's go over the body armor. We're running Steel Skin with more duration support, with Automation, Phase Run, Empower, and Enhance. So let's get over why we're running that. So first off, we start with the Empower and Enhance. What Empower does is it increases the gem level of all the connected gems as a support gem. And then Enhance increases all the quality of the support gems. So if you read on the bottom of this skill, for instance, from Phase Run, this will give us another 12% movement speed on our Phase Run by having more quality from the enhanced support. Let's get over why we're running Steel Skin. The reason why we're running Steel Skin is it grants the immunity to bleeding, but that's not all. 70% of the damage from hits is taken from the buff before your life and energy shield. So the Steel Skin practically mitigates 2,837 damage, which is pretty big, because that's more than most monsters will actually hit in Heist. We have more duration. Steel Skin and Phase Run has a base duration. Phase Run has 1 second and 80, and Steel Skin has 1 second and 50. But this get increased by like 50% because of the more duration support. So instead of 1.5, it's now 2.75, for instance. So it practically almost doubles the amount of time you have. And because of that, it makes it so we always have this buff up the whole time. And then you're asking, but Steel Skin you have to click right, and Phase Run you have to click yourself right. That is where automation comes into play. Automation, practically for a small amount of mana, will trigger both of the spells. So what automation does, it casts the Phase Run for you, it casts the Steel Skin for you. You don't have to click it yourself. It's all automatic. As long as you have enough mana for both of those skills to be procced. So if you can see my character, each like couple seconds you see I'll turn invisible. You see I get the Steel Skin, and it will just keep on going endlessly because of that. And that is why we run those things on our body armor. It's really, really good. The main reason why we're running Phase Run is because it grants you phasing. You can run through the enemies, and you also get 63% movement speed from just having this on. Do not forget that this can be increased even further with the passive tree, because there are notes that will say when you're phasing, grant you movement speed. And this will also count as phasing, thus will grant you the movement speed. So that's also really nice to keep in mind. Let's get over what we have on the shield. We have Flame Dash, we have Life Tap support, and we have Second Wind support. Life tap makes it so whenever we cast a skill, it will just go from our life, but regenerate so much life that it does not affect us. Also, we're running second wind, so we have more charges from our flame dash. Our flame dash is limited to a couple amount of charges, but having second wind increase it by one charge, and that's why we're running it. On our shoes, we're running Awakened Burning Damage support with Righteous Fire, with Efficiency support, and with Awakened Elemental Focus support. I'm not gonna lie, this skill does no damage. Like, we have no multipliers to increase this damage, it just looks cool. The only reason why we have this is because we have a fancy ring around us when we're running Heist and it looks cool. that, that, is, that is literally the only reason why we have it. It just looks cool. Yeah, it does no damage. Just you can skip this if you want. You can just put like let's say a molten shell setup here, for instance, or immortal call. That's like what you can do. You don't really need it. Your shoes can literally be empty and it wouldn't change shit. Not gonna lie. The build's already functional, running, and everything, even without having anything on your boots. On our gloves, however, this is really, really good. Running increased area of effect with Void Spear, you're running Decoy Totem and Life Tap support. And the reason why this is like really good is increased area of effect will practically increase the range of the decoy totem, and it will also increase the size of your void spear. So let's say I throw my void spear, every monster gets sucked into this from around where I'm standing, where the portal is. So they get then sucked into the void spear and they're just stuck inside of there. You can also throw decoy totems. Decoy totems make it so all the monsters around it get attracted to the totem. And because of that, you don't really take damage as much, and it's really nice to open doors. So let's say you have to open a door, you quickly throw this decoy totem on the other side, where it's like not the door, and then your mercenary will just open the door really quickly, while all the monsters focus on the totem. That's why you're running it. That's about it for the gloves. Let's get over the gear now. If we go over the gear, the most important piece for this build is this helmet. The photos devotion. What this gives you is it gives you movement speed, but that's not really what we're looking for. We're looking for the top stat. Socketed skills get a 90% cost and reservation multiplier. This stacks with enlighten, so it will heavily like left the burden from your grace, haste, and tempest shield. That is the most important stat to have on this devotion, and the reason why we also have it on this devotion is because it's a pretty easy stat to get on this item. And you also get a 20% movement speed bonus. It goes hand in hand that we take this, right? And not just that, it will also increase your chaos resistance, and it gives you cool fancy footprints. Okay, let's go over the body armor. This is Queen of the Forest Destiny Ladder. What it does is it gives you 1% increased movement speed per 600 evasion rating, up to 75%. That is 45,000 evasion, will get you the maximum amount from the Queen of the Forest Destiny Ladder. So once you have above 45,000 evasion like we have, we're sitting on 71,000, it will only increases your evade chance, but will not really affect your movement speed anymore. So that is like really interesting to know. Because this armor, we're currently sitting at 525% movement speed. It's pretty damn sexy. Okay, let's get over the shoes. The shoes are pretty easy and standard. The only thing that matters is life, movement speed, and resistances. Regen is a bonus. So what we did is we're running 30% movement speed with 12% increased movement speed if you haven't been hit recently. And this modifier you can only get from Betrayal. Also the 15% fire and chaos resistance, that's also only from Betrayal. Then again, the top implicit stats regenerate 7% increase life regeneration and 5% movement speed. Let's get right into that. So the movement speed is the Searing Exarch, and the increased regeneration is the Eater of Worlds. And that's kind of it for the boots. Let's get over the gloves. This is also like really, really easy to set up. The only thing you really need is life. Maybe regen, you don't really need regen. With like fire resistance, you want some chaos resistance maybe. And that's literally it. You just want life, resistance, maybe chaos resistance. And then on the top you have Ether of Wilds implicit, 10% physical damage converted to fire damage. And the attack speed will practically make it so you can cast this Void Spear a little bit quicker. It doesn't really like... It's like really easy to set up the gear for this character, except like certain pieces. But that is practically it for the gloss. It's like really, really easy and standard to set up. Now we go for Amulet. This is where it gets actually kind of specific. So what you need on your amulet is a shit ton of int, a shit ton of stats. Life is bonus, resistance is bonus. The only thing you want on your amulet is stats. You need to have at least tier 2 int, and you need to have at least tier 4 attributes. And then on the top stat attributes, it's an Onyx amulet. And we have Sovereignty. This practically gives us 12% increased mana reservation. And it's really, really nice. And it also affects our non-cursed auras, which is all our auras, by 10%. Which is like a really nice addition to the build. But this practically is one of the most important pieces, because if you turn this off, you can literally wear none of your gear. So yeah, you get all the stats on it. The easiest way you can get this is by doing essence spamming. You can just do the Essence of Spite until you hit the attributes, and all the other things is just a bonus. Let's get over our rings. Okay, you don't need a Calandra starch, okay? Just to say, you don't really need it. All you have to get on your ring is really easy. Just get some life, maybe regeneration, get a resistance that you need. If you remove this, it doesn't really affect your stats, so you don't really need to have flat stats on your ring. We're mainly using this to get a shit ton of life. So you get max life, tier 1 life, and then you craft non-channeling skills, -8, that's again a betrayal modifier, and that's the only thing that matters, together with the top implicit stat, increased maximum life from the familiar ring. And just to showcase how much life this gives me. So right now, you see that I have 6,600 life. If I remove this, I lose 1,130 life. So that is just how crazy it is having 2 of those ranks. So get your life, get your regen, and then just craft non-channeling on it, and that's it. You don't need flat stats, you don't need resistance, you don't need anything like that on it. Just have that. And now we go over our weapon. It's an Ichimonji, very straightforward. It's like so easy to get. It doesn't really need an explanation as much. 10% increased mana reservation, that's the main reason why we're running this. And our buff does not affect allies, does not affect us because we're always alone. So that's Ichimonji for you. And then our bread and butter of our survival, it's our Shaper Shield. Of course we have a Shaper Shield. If you're running any Righteous Fire build, if you're running any Chieftain build, there's always going to be a Shaper Shield. Recover 5% of your life when you block. We're stacking a shit ton of life. We have over 6,000 life. So we get a shit ton of life back. Some resistance and the increased chance to block. The increased chance to block is really nice because if you look at our block chance, is literally giving us the 75%. So the only thing you should actually look for on this is you have the chance to block, you have the fire resistance, and you have the life on block. But we have so much resistance. If you look on our right side, we have over 300% fire res. You can literally just skip out on most of that, okay? So you don't really have to worry about all the stats. Just get your recover 5% and get your chance to block. That is like the only 2 things that truly matter on the shield. So that's practically it for the shield. And now let's go over the most concerning piece, the Mage Blood. Most people ask me, do I really need the Mage Blood to start off this Heist character? And I say, no you don't. And you can also use the Wretch. This will basically increase the flask effect, and then you have increased duration on your flask with reuse at the end of the flask effect. So it is possible to just reuse the Wretch, which is like a 10 chaos, I think. It's like 1 to 10 chaos or something to use this. And it practically has almost the same effect. The only downside, it does have the increased effect. So if you have a mage blood, you have flask with increased effect, which makes them better, obviously. So what I use as my flasks is I use the Jade flask. This increases also my evasion rating. It increases the effect by 95%, shit ton of evasion. I'm using the Quicksilver flask with regeneration craft. It has another 95% increased effect. Then I run this silver flask. It gives me onslaught. I have the resistance on here, but it's like you don't really need it, but you know, more fire res, more regen with double increase effect. And then more movement speed, max roll movement speed on this flask, the ruby flask, to maximize the fire resistance. Because if we look at our resistance without it, it's 80%, and now it's 90%. So yeah, that is pretty nice. We go over why later. And then we have over here our life flask. We have the instant recovery on low life. Low life counts as when your life is below 50%. So let's say your life is below 50%, you're instantly healing like 4,000, 5,000 health from this. Because we have many things on the tree that will increase the effect of the life flask. So you just one press your max HP again if whatever happens to you, you know what I mean? So it starts up here. We go through those nodes which gives you life percentage. We grab the regen here with strength. We get the Heart of the Warrior, 10% life, 20 flat. We go further to the left. Let's go all the way up here now. We have Glancing Blows. It doubles our attack block and spell block, but we take 65% of damage. Gets mitigated by a Shaper Shield with 5% life on block. And then we go back down here. We take all of those life nodes. It's another 20% life. Then we go over here. This is Fire Mastery. Regenerate 1 life per second for each 1% uncapped fire res. So we have 90 res, but the uncapped is in the commas between is 360%. So that is 360 flat life regeneration. And we also have 1 life regeneration here, and this other fire overtime doesn't matter. We go down here, and there's another fire resistance, max fire resistance, and life, huge. Then we go down here. The only thing that matters on the Crimson Jewel is having maximum life and maximum fire res. Everything else is a bonus. If you can get like a dual res with like fire res is really nice, but you don't really need it. And then we go over here, Juggernaut. We don't care about the armor, we don't have any armor, but the life is really nice. Another 12% life. We go further down, so now we move over here. There's another jewel. On this jewel, again, we're running life, max fire res. We're going further, and here again you have regeneration. We go further, a lot of life nodes here and evasion rating. And then you're questioning why the hell you're running dex nodes. So right here we have a Transcendent Spirit. This increases our movement speed by 3% per dex node we take. But if we don't take the dex node, we lose 2% movement speed per time. This gives us 18% movement speed. Then we go up here. 5% increased effect of the flasks, really nice. It also applies to the life flask. Over here we have 30% increased life recovery from flasks, and also 10%, that's 40%, plus the 5% that makes it around 4,000 life back with a flask. It's really crazy. Over here we got the Graceful Assault. This gives you a lot of evasion, a lot of onslaught effect. The onslaught effect also applies to your flasks. So if you have like an onslaught flask and then you have Graceful Assault, it stacks. And there's also like those tiny nodes which increase the effect and the evasion, which is really nice. Over here, this doesn't matter the area of effect, but it's the reservation. We get 20% reservation here, and it's really, really good. And then up here, we have freedom movement, increased movement speed while facing. That's what I was talking about before. So this gives us a shit ton of evasion and movement speed. And another 2 nodes here, which is another 15% life, really nice. Then we go up here, and I took the evasion mastery. Cannot be stunned if you haven't been hit recently. So we're practically stun immune because we're just phasing through everything. And then on top of that we have fleet foot. Increased evasion, movement speed, and cooldown recovery of movement skills, like let's say Flame Dash, for instance. So, and another movement speed on it, really, really nice. And then the last part of the entire passive tree. No, just kidding. We also have the top there, but last part of the bottom of the passive tree. Medium cluster of year with brute potency and spite concoction. Spite concoction, 5% increase attack cast speed during the effect. Gain Alchemist Genius. Alchemist Genius. Flash charges gained by 20% and the effect is increased by 10%. So we have permanently 10% flask effect, which is like pretty damn crazy. And on this side we have life and mana recovery. So I'm telling you, like it all stacks up with the life recovery from flask. So we get like 4,000 plus from it. And over here we have a small cluster with sublime form and some stats, fire rest, life. And the reason why we have this is because of this. Grace has a 50% increased mana reservation efficiency. Without this, we cannot use Grace. So we had no chance but to go for a Sublime form. Let's go to the top. We put it over here. It gives us a lot of dex. Doesn't really matter too much. But over here we have suppression, but we mainly do this for the movement speed. It gives like a lot of movement speed, more life, evasion, more life. You see like the pattern, right? As all life, evasion, and movement speed. Over here we have 15% movement speed while being affected by grace. We always have grace up, so this is like a permanent buff. And we always have vitality up, so 10% increased life recovery rate while affected by vitality. This applies also to your flasks. This also applies to your flasks. You see what I'm doing? And over here, another 5% movement speed. The damage increase doesn't matter. And then up here, we have this node over here. Auras from your skills has 10% increased effect. This applies to all our auras, which is really strong. And another reservation. Like this is, I think, yeah, it's 24% increased reservation. It's really, really good. And over here again, the Transcendent Spirit is just making clutches. 19% movement speed from this one jewel. And then over here, we got Evasion Mastery. Another 10% movement speed increase if I haven't been hit recently. And we're running that with like a shit ton of life increase, evasion increase. And that is practically the passive tree. It's pretty straightforward. It's all resistance, life, movement speed, evasion, and reservation and things for our life flasks. We don't really need any damage for this build, and we can just like rush through everything. That's literally it for the passive tree. Let's get straight into the Ascendancy. So what we did for the Ascendancy, let's start out with the Hinocore as Dead Fury. This does nothing to us. Like when we were playing Righteous Fire, this would be really nice, but here it's just like it just does there to stand. Like all the other things are useless, so we might as well just have it, you know what I mean? And then over here we have Ramako's Sunlight. Damage when you're stationary minus 20%. This does literally nothing again. Like those two does literally nothing to us. The reason why we have this Ascendancy is because of the Tassalio Cleansing Water and the Falaco Storm Embrace. This is a really cheap way to get 90% all resistance. The lasers are lightning resistance and the explosions are fire resistance. So having Talaco Cleansing Water together with Falaco Storm Embrace makes it so we can just easily run through all the traps without taking a single hit of damage. And not gonna lie, he just looks cool, you know what I mean? Like if you're been in the game for a long time, and if you're doing heist for a long time, you at least want to look cool doing it, right? So yeah, so that is really nice. Modifiers to fire rest also apply to cold and lightning rest. So you can just fully stack fire resistance, and it maxes out all your other resistances. And it's the same thing with Falaco Storm Embrace. If you get one resistance maximum, all your resists are maximum. So we all go for fire. Fire, fire, fire. Fire gives us regeneration. Fire gives us all resistance. Fire gives us max resistance. And that's how I like to stack it. If you want to buy the Falaco Storm Embrace with like, I think it was like a flash. Yeah, if you want to buy the flash version of this, then it's gonna cost you like 300 divines. So here we get it for free. So, that is the entire build. That is kind of crazy. I spent like a while thinking about this, but it worked out fine. I got simplexes, focus amulet, I got helical rings, I got everything, dude. That was a really fun build to play. Aye, aye, aye. What a great build. Hope you guys like this video and have a great one.